What's up, everybody? Caius here again, and today we are bringing a second build of the league that I've rolled, which is Cyclone Impaler with the Hallowed Palm Jewel. Now, an explanation of the build is it is going to Cyclone at an incredibly quick rate. It's going to imply Impales, and the damage is going to be both good on bosses and on map clear. It is a very quick build, it is very successful. It is a build I first ran in Delirium when Hallowed Palm, which we'll come around to what that does in a second, first came out. There have been some changes to Cyclone and stuff since then, but we will go over why it still works and why it's a good starter and an endgame. Now, how the build works is you are not allowed to wear a weapon, so no weapon in your main hand, no offhand, no gloves. You have to be unencumbered. If we look at the jewel down here, it's a cluster jewel. It says you count as dual wielding while you're unencumbered, which means, again, no gloves, no main hand, no offhand. You gain 60% more attack speed when unencumbered, which is a multiplier, and then you also gain a 14 to 20 flat added attack physical damage per 10 dex. So the idea of the build is you are stacking as much dex as you want, and you're trying to feed off of it. Now, the only con of the build is by losing those extra slots of the gloves, the weapon, and the offhand, you're losing a lot of gem sockets. So your gem sockets become tight, your resist become tight, making sure you have enough HP becomes tight as well. So, without further ado, we're first going to go over what the general build is and then the gear. So, with the gear and the build, we're sitting on about 1,300, so we're sitting on 1,306 decks. This will make it so you have no accuracy problems. We're not evading because we end up converting that, which I'll show you to. And this will feed the attack. So if you're getting 10 or 14 to 20 flat added physical attack damage per 10 dex, 1,300 makes those numbers soar. Like, we just look over the Cyclone before like doing any buffs. It's showing 386k DPS on the tooltip. That's before doing anything like channeling infusion, hitting pots, throwing my totems down, anything. But the flat fizz on the numbers is pretty damn good. So if we look at the gear, we are first running dex on everything. So you get a helm with dex. You want to get double res, high reses, because you're going to need the reses, and HP. It's as simple as this for the helm. You want a yellow helmet with those mods. That helmet alone probably cost me around an Exalt. They're not too expensive because they're not triple res, but they're about an Exalt too. You could definitely start with a much worse one. I ran with a gold rim for the longest time until I found one I liked, and then I picked one up. The chest. The Wild Wrap, this is a prophecy upgrade. Now what's cool about this chest, they are usually under an Exalt. The only thing is you need to get the colors of 3 blue, 2 green, and a red on a green chest. Or 3 red, 1 blue, 2 green, I'm sorry, on a chest. And this chest will be your endgame chest. There is nothing better on the DPS department. It doesn't have life, but life isn't a problem. You're still sitting on 63, almost 6,400 health. Has a little bit of resistance. It gives you an increased dex percentage and attack speed, which isn't matter that much because you're cycloning. And then the most important thing, which puts this chest above everything else, is the 1% increased damage per 15 dex. So this is your bread and butter. It's a very good double corruption fodder. They're very cheap. You can keep buying them. You can keep going until you get one, hopefully, with, like, I think 50% damage was the best simplicity I saw, and maybe a +1 after that. So that's what you'd aim for. So these are under Exalt. Next is the belt. And again, this is something you can do endgame. You don't have to worry about this slot as much early, which we'll go over starter gear in a second. But this is a belt, and the most important thing you want to do with these is I bought an influence belt because I wanted the jewel socket to get more dex and to get more resist and a little bit more life. So a Stygian device that is hunter like influenced is around 3 exalts for just a garbage one. But what you end up doing, and the reason you want hunter influenced, whether it's a Stygian device or not, is hunter influence allows that attributes percent to be rolled. So this one has 14% increased attributes and 66 dex, and I used a catalyst to bring out all those up by 20%. So most belts can't roll with dex by default. I don't think any belt actually can by default. So the only way to get that is you need to get a bunch of essences, preferably the deafening ones, and you just keep spamming it and spamming it and spamming a white one until you get dex to attribute percent. You don't care about anything else. If you get life, if you get a resist, great. This one turned out okay, and I was pretty happy with it. It got the dex, it got the attributes. It's a Stygian. It's now worth a bunch more money. And then we just run simple Abyss Jewels, and in our tree alone, pretty much all our jewels look exactly the same. They're like a life, all res, dex, and all these jewels cost between 1 to 2 exalts depending. And these are things, again, you could fill in later. Next to the boots, these are between 12 to 40 chaos I've seen today. And again, they don't have life in them, but they come with dex. They make you immune to shot ground, shield ground, burning, which dice you're regenning while you're moving. But the big part is the 2 life per 10 dex. So again, 1300 dex. That's well over 200 flat life before multipliers. The colors are another thing, but you can just for each of these, so they're not too bad. We're running 4 off colors. After that, we got ring number 1. Your ring number 1 for me, and both your rings can be this till later. You just need dex at high resist. And if you can throw HP on them, great. That's all you need. Nothing too crazy about them. These rings range from like 50 chaos to 2 exalts, depending on what you want on them. And again, we're using the catalyst for attributes. Now this ring, so I'd run 2 rings like this for the longest time, but later on, since I panned out my resist, I spent 9 exalts in this. It gives you vulnerability on hit, which you're doing physical damage, just a big damage increase. And it had the dex and the life. Those are pretty expensive, but I've seen them vary too. They could be much cheaper if you want a lower vulnerability effect. They could be much cheaper if you don't want a steel ring, which I didn't care for the steel. It happened to show up and I had the money, so I said, okay, we'll buy it. So that is one thing you want to aim for endgame. And then as well as the neck. Now, an Astra Menace, which is literally like 4 to 5 chaos, will carry you forever. You never need to change it. I'm telling you right now, you do not have to change it. It will bring up your dex to absurd amount. It will give you a bunch of damage. It will give you HP, everything. Now, I saw this for 20x, and I couldn't say no. I had the money again. I farmed a bunch of contracts early, was just doing currency lockpicking runs, as well as the div card runs. Hit a couple good div cards, sold those. And then we found a neck like this with around 85 dex. Had the int I needed, because I was losing Astra Menace, obviously. I needed to keep some int. And then it had a 14% increased dex. And then it had another 1% damage per 15 dex. So now we're sitting on 2% damage between these two per 15 dex. So pretty big damage increases. Definitely nice to go for later. And as for the Anointment, we'll get into that in a second. So those are just your base items. And then if we go to Flasks, we just have a Seething, Eternal, Staunching, just instant bleed removal with quick life recovery. Sin's Rebirth, it gives us a Smoke Cloud, which doesn't matter as much unless you move out of it and use it for kiting. But the Unholy Might is just a big damage increase, a bunch of extra damage. So if we hit it, for instance, we just got over 150k in our tooltip, and it's a bunch of chaos, which is nice. Lion's Roar, again, another big multiplier. The knockback can get a little bit annoying, so if you don't like it, for the longest time, I ran an Aziri's Promise, which is much lower, but you could run either or, it's fine. This slot, I would say, is open. You need it to be freeze immune, and the reason I chose an enduring freeze immune is our mana pool is low. And it's not that I'm having trouble because we do have Leech sustain the mana. It's more I hate Baron, he's a piece of shit, and I just like having the mana up, just in case. So we just keep this here, but this could be anything. This could be a Sulfur, this could be an Onslaught Flask, it could be really anything you want. Then we have your standard Quicksilver with movement speed. The first property doesn't matter the crit because we don't crit. If we go into gems, our links look as follows. So we're running a Cyclone. A 21 is much better than a 20 because of the fact that it gets another stage, which means it gets one more radius. And Cyclone is usually pretty small, but this is unarmed Cyclone. It looks pretty good, I'd say. Like, the size is pretty freaking good. And it hits a good area for the most part. This will cleave through mobs, and that's for being unarmed, but that's not bad. So we're running Cyclone. That's our bread and butter. And then for jewels, I decided to go with a Divergent Polarized support, which has a lot more multiplier. It's a 79 more multiplier. It has less attack speed, which doesn't matter with Cyclone. If we like look at our Cyclone here, we're sitting at 8.4 attacks a second. It's already nuts. So this was just a big multiplier. It brings your area up, so it helps with Cyclone synergy as well. We then just got a normal Fortify. The alternate Fortifies aren't that great. This one is just best. It gives you a little bit extra damage. Fortify in your main supports is great. Always have it up. We then have Infused Channeling, and I went the Anomalous. You can go with the Anomalous or the normal. This one just gives more infusion effect. So this one just gives a big damage multiplier. You get to take less for physical. It's nice overall. Gain a little bit more damage with physical from the infusion, and that's getting buffed by the own effect. So this is the other support I'd use. Then we're down to Melee Fizz, and this one's preference as well, but I went with the Anomalous, and the difference is instead of getting the extra damage, you're getting +2 to melee strike range, bigger radius, better Cyclone. And then we have Impale, because we are 100% Impale. This will help you overwhelm. You get your max overwhelm to 0, as well as doing a little bit more damage, making your Impale stronger and having that hit. So this is your standard links here. And then for the helmet, we're just running a second wind with dash, just to keep being able to move really quick all over the place.
Can't do this just yet.
We also have Blood Rage, more attack speed, a little bit more leech, Frenzy Shard generation. You could choose to go with one of the alternates that lets you get Frenzy on bosses as well, but don't really need it. And then we have Ancestor War Chief. I mean, just the regular War Chief brings up our damage by almost 100k. The War Chief brings it past that. And if we have like everything out, guys, like I'm just gonna hit all these. It's like 827 before doing anything. I don't even have Infusion up. Or I didn't have like some other mods up. But it goes over 1 million, I promise you. So those are those. And then down here we have our auras. So we're running Pride. Physical build makes sense. You're up at everything's face. You don't need the overwhelm. We already overcapped, but I had it, so I was like, why not? Flushed Stone. It's going to make you take less damage from things out of your range, which will help before you get there. It will also give you that free blind when you're cycloning on stuff. And then we got Blood and Sand. You primarily use it for the area, but on bosses, it's just a quick switch, and it will swap both your Flesh and Stone and your Blood and Sand over to Blood, which this makes them get maimed. It also makes them take 60% increased damage, and the Blood and Sand will make you do 50% more. So just by swapping, you're now doing a shit ton more damage on bosses. It's a good single target switch. Just from switching, it goes from like 80k down to 80k up, but you gotta wait. Actually, more than that. It's like 120k up, I think. No, it's 80. Sorry, I can't math. It's 80, but it's not including the maim, the 60% maim. So that's an easy swap. And then we have an Enlighten in there. Probably don't even need it, but we have it. Now, if we go to skill tree, we are champion. We'll go over the ascendancy first. Now, the things you need to guarantee take are this. This was the first thing I took for lab. Just the simple impales. Gives you a bunch of armor when you impale. You're getting flat damage for impale. It gives you 2 additional impale hits. This helps cap your impale chance. So we pick that up. You definitely want to pick up the Unstoppable Hero, which gives you a bunch of buffs with Fortify. And the very important thing is can't be stunned when you have Fortify. Since they removed the stun immunity from Cyclone, this is how you get it. And you're also picking a bunch of flat armor and evasion, which all gets converted to armor with Iron Reflexes. So this is very good. Now, next, the Taunt I think is very good. It's a 100% chance. You're taking less damage. If you do party play, you help your teammates a little bit. You get a little regen. Definitely like the Taunt. Definitely recommend it. Now, the next one, some people will say, why don't you just take this and run like Brutality in your links? And you could do that. That's totally your choice. But I do like having the permanent Intimidate. I do like having the Adrenaline safety net that will bring you up. If you go down, you just come back up and you'll get a big damage boost for a period of time, and it removes some ailments. So I personally chose this to keep fortifying the links, but if you decided to go with this and run Brutality, you are totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So that is our Ascendancy. Now, how it goes is we kind of go down, we start here, pick up the life, pick up the weapon range, pick up the life here, the attack speed. But as you're leveling, the most important thing is you need to get to a cluster jewel sock immediately. So when you're leveling, all I did is I went down this path here. I ran straight over and I picked up this cluster jewel to start and I put one with nothing in it. And as soon as you get that, you will start blowing things up and power leveling through the game. And the cool thing is, stuff like this is your biggest damage increase. Like 30 dex, huge, because that's just a bunch of flat damage. It's also life, it's everything, because their boots give you life of it, you're getting damage off the jewel, you're getting accuracy. So, more or less, you go like here, you pick this up, and then you can start working through this way of the tree. And the reason I go through here is because resists are tight, but we do make our way through. You could choose to ignore jewel sockets till later, till much later. You pick up iron reflexes. You're converting your evasion to armor just to have a massive armor bonus. The dual wheel tree you could pick up later, but you do pass by it. You can eventually then change Hallowed Palm to here because removing the strength node and these saves you 1 point actually. You then come through, there's a life wheel. You could choose to get these as you go. It's really up to the player how much survivability you want. But you can pick these up later or not. But you eventually pick up Wind Dancer, which I didn't use that at first, and I started to. So since we're using iron reflexes, what this pretty much reads is, I have 40% less armor, but the first hit on me, when I haven't been hit recently, will do 20% less damage, whether that's spell hit or anything, so it helps with both. And then once I'm hit, instead of having 40% less armor, we have 20% more because we're converting. So it's actually a really good node. I highly recommend picking up early. And then you got the big dex cluster wheel here. You'll pick this up. You'll actually socket this mana leech right here very early. It will help you. There's a way to get rid of it later, but I'll show you how. So you pick up the mana leech. There's more life on the way, and then there's more accuracy, attack speed, and dex. And then another jewel socket you'll pass by, more life. Pick up this, because this is just dex, attack speed, move speed. Or sorry, dex, movement speed, physical damage. And then you got finesse, which is more dex, life, and then more dex. You're trying to get everything you can with dex, and that makes sense. Now, the one thing of preference I will say is on the tree, is you don't have to have this. But I anointed it at one point, and I really liked it. And you're already pathing up here for the extra dex, because these are damaged. Remember, these are all damage nodes every 10 you get. So it makes these jewel sockets more appealing. So I was there, and I was like, you know what? We'll pick up the elusive. It makes clearing a little bit faster. It makes it a little bit more safe, too. Now, as for the jewel sockets, they're all the same. They are literally all the same. Dex, life, all res. And then again, we have dex, life, all res. We have dex, life, all res. I only think I have 4 sockets. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3. And this is the only one that's slightly different. This is dex, life, and double res, because I couldn't find all res, but this is where I got my mana leech. This one costs about 2x. Most of the other jewels are between 50 chaos to an exalt. But this is just a little bit of dex, life, and it has resist, and it has mana. So we're getting a majority of our resist from the tree and from jewel sockets, because you get some here, you get some over here. But just buy maps, try and have your resist figured out, and then all the rest can come later. Like again, I went into this build after Blazing Salvo with a 1-0, these boots, an Astra Menace, and I had a couple 30 dex rings with some life and resist on them, and a gold rim. And I'm pretty sure I was farming maps super easy, because as soon as you get the 1-0, your damage is going to be insane, and you just go to Infernal Blow until you get Cyclone, and you'll be one-shotting everything. And then you just pick up what you need as you go. If you think you're low on life, pick up some of the life. Come back for a jewel socket, and you get a nice one. Pick up some more dex, pick up some attack speed, pick up the elusive if you want it. So it just adds to a bunch of damage. And overall, you can start this on a very cheap build. This is just like a 35 to 40x glorified version of it to show what it can do. The life looks good. The armor right now is just 62, but as soon as you impale something and as soon as you have fortify, it's going to skyrocket. I'll try and show that in the map that we're about to perform. So we will put in, let's do a Necropolis. That's a pretty easy one. Pretty simple map to show what we want to do on it. As for mods, we're on Awakener 8, by the way. Because this build, I can tell you right now, is just cleared Awakener 8 today. I actually did it today. I finally got the last Watchstone, the Guardian spawn. I did Uber Elder today. I did Shaper and Elder twice each. Contracts, it hasn't had a problem with. It just goes through. I mean, sure, it's died, because again, I'm playing softcore. I play very reckless, but I kind of just put map mods in. Unless it's Fizz Reflect, I don't care. Fizz Reflect, you can even do no regen because you have this. And you have your health leech because you have this, which is more than enough. You can try and get life on hidden rings if you want. And we have a mana leech on the jewel up here. But let me go ahead and showcase. We'll just keep those mods. Go ahead and activate it. So I'll try and show the armor first once we get everything going. Once we hit something. So we're going to go a little slow here. 35k armor. That's pretty much what your armor is going to be at. Now, if we go to offense... $1.2 million. And then you can just dash across if you have gaps, don't matter. This is the best map to show it on because it's not as linear, but we're not going to pick up anything. I have too many contracts as it is. Didn't hit the abyss here, sure. And that was without our totem down too. Yeah, 1.3 in sand stance. Now imagine that blood stance. And that's what you'll use for your bosses or like slightly harder enemies, but most of the stuff just dies. Oh god, these ledges suck. Dude, these ledges actually suck. Yeah, we just keep spinning through. Make sure we check our life, hit our pot when we need to, but you really don't need to with the leech. Spin through, clear the map any way you want. Got the dash to keep going. Dash plus second wind literally just enables you to be a little bit more of a crack farmer. Spin. We have a nice little healthy buff bar at the top between Infusion, Elusive, Fortify. This is a tier 16. So this just gives an idea. We'll go do the boss over here. Here's the boss right here. And he's dead. Kills Guardians pretty quick. It kills Awakener very quickly. And again, this is a very tuned-out version, but I was doing Awakener with just an Astra Menace and some lesser gear. Didn't have the vulnerability ring. These will be able to do stuff. It obviously gets much easier as you put money like any other build. But here, we can go do the Corrupted Zone too. And what's cool, your max accuracy, because your dex is so insanely high, your damage is high, your life is at a decent number. And now it's kind of like it's builds 97, obviously, so cut out things you have to, like the Elusive if you're not there, or a Jewel Socket. Those are all fine to cut out. For the Anointment, we take one called Lucidity, and that pretty much makes it so you do 30% more damage with channeling, and your channel skills cost -3. So with that, my channel actually costs 6 instead of 9. And if you really wanted to, and you got good rings, you could totally roll minus cost on both of these. Just have a free Cyclone. That's completely an option. But it seems like 6 is the lucky number. 6 seems to be the number that I don't have any problems, especially with the Enduring Flash just being up always. I should pick a terrible map to demo this on, though. Too many walls. But yeah, we just... pretty good. Not really any endangerment of dying. It delves really well. Of course, you can imagine how the delve is as well. Oh, there we go. As soon as I say no endanger of dying, I get stuck because of dash. Dash can be a little clunky on shit like this. Like, tight walkways. It, like, wants to go to the further ones sometimes for some reason. Yeah, there we go. Now it did it. Now it does it when I'm not in danger of getting hit by the mob. Yeah, this also does blighted maps pretty well. But again, as I said, the knockback can get annoying sometimes, so I totally understand if people like running that Xeris Flask instead. And then I just have an off weapon with Portal, just to make it easy. But yeah, just as I said, start it up. Give it a try. I think a lot of people will like this build. It's very solid. It's very fun. I'm 97 on it right now. I just hit 97 today. I don't know if I'm going to go for 100. I've kind of debated maybe making an Archmage build soon because I'm sitting on Exalts. I could probably sell off the gear and get like 40 Exalts. And I'm debating starting an Archmage or maybe possibly going back to Blazing Salvo because I can afford that series Reflection now. We can do some crazy shit with that. So we will see. We'll keep posting builds here and there, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do go live on Twitch most days. We're not always playing Path of Exile, but it happens at least 3 times a week when League's going. And that is twitch.tv/Kaius3. That's Kaius with 3 I's, Kaiiius3. I will put that in the description as well. But I appreciate you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.